All right, hello and welcome into the Rundown with Caleb and Casey here on a Thursday afternoon, back from a 1-week hiatus. It's been over 2 weeks since we last recorded. We are back, and goodness gracious, we have so much to talk about today. So much so that we'll talk about it later, but we're going to have like a separate show next week to hit on some topics that we can't hit on today, mainly basketball. But Casey, it's everything today. We've got the college football playoffs is a hot button issue right now. Rivalry week was insane. Casey thinks that Kansas is a lock to win the college basketball national championship now that they fell to Creighton last night.
The last number one seed to lose in Omaha went on to win the national championship. So if you put 2 and 2 together, there's no other outcome it can be. Like, just pencil it in already.
More on that next week, probably.
Yeah.
And by the way, that football team they got up there at the Iowa State University of Science and Technology, you know what I'm talking about, in Ames. They're playing at the Big 12 Championship this weekend, baby. Let's go.
Boys might be good at football.
Come on. Just checking to see if y'all still them boys.
We are, that's for sure.
Big 12 Championship clones this weekend. Arlington in 2 days, as we're a little bit later this week than usual. Matt Campbell versus Kenny Dillingham. Can you find two more different coaches than those two?
No, not one bit. You got the young, extremely young, energetic. Not to say Campbell's young. Campbell's young too, but Kenny Dillingham, I believe, is the youngest Power 5 head coach.
And he shows his youth as well.
Yeah. He's out there more pumped up than Danny Hurley during a timeout. So, but you love it. I mean, that's what you expect from young coaches. Dillingham's got the program in the right direction. A team that was projected to finish dead last to actually finish first in the conference. So, good for them. It's going to be a tough game, but hopefully we get a couple more smiles and energy out of Campbell like we've seen in the past 2 weeks.
Real quick, just because you mentioned that, I want to hit on this right now, okay? So here is a tweet. You mentioned that Arizona State was picked to finish last in the conference, finish first. I'm going to run through this quick. Where teams finished in the conference and where they were slated preseason, okay? So number 1, Arizona State, projected to finish last, 16th. Number 2, Iowa State, projected to finish 6th. 3 is BYU. They were a 13th place projection. 4, Colorado, projected 11th preseason. 5 is Baylor. They came in at 12th preseason. 6, TCU, projected 10th. That's not bad, Casey. You had them at second there.
It's not second.
They kind of backdoored a nice little respectable season.
To be fair, 1 win away from being in that top seed. So
right there. At
the end of the day, I saw the vision.
7, Texas Tech, projected 9th. That's not bad at all. Mm-hmm. 8 was K-State, projected 2nd. Tough end of the year for them.
We fraud checked them though.
We sure did. Fraud checked Avery Johnson. Thanks to John Haycock. 9, West Virginia, projected 7th. 10, Kansas, projected 4th. 11th, Cincinnati, projected 14th. 12 is Houston, projected 15th. 13th, Utah. Preseason-wise, they were, of course, number 1 in the conference. 14, Arizona, projected 5th. Again, we called that one, Casey. Yeah. We had that one coming. 15th, UCF, projected 8th. And then 16th, Oklahoma State, winless in the league, projected 3rd. I suppose I got to eat crow on that one. I had them, I think, probably 3rd as well.
I don't think I had them making a bowl game or like a 6-win team.
You were a little more right on them than most people were, yeah. Anyway, that's where we're at today as it stands on Thursday, December 5th, 2024. Let's talk a little Cyclone football here, Casey, all right?
Let's talk about the great clones.
Indeed. First 10-win season ever, clones. That's a big deal. I never thought it was possible, but 2024 has been the season, man. And especially, after the 2-game slide, Texas Tech and Kansas both came in, and it felt like the dream season was coming to an end, and then, just found a way. This team found a way. This culture found a way. Saturday night was unbelievable. Made me incredibly proud to be an Iowa State fan. Just the way the season ended. Almost there. If Willie Fritz and company had found a way to win that one in Provo against BYU, almost wouldn't have, really had this conversation today about the Big 12 championship. But thanks to Kalani Sitake and BYU, the Cyclones are in for the second time in 5 years. Thoughts, Casey?
out after playing Baylor in, was that week 6?
Yeah.
One game decided by double digits or more. Everything else, I mean, and you look down the stretch, we had to fight for every game. You lose to Texas Tech by 1. Kansas was a 9-point game. Didn't really feel like a 9-point game, though. We were still in it. UCF, a 3-point game. West Virginia, an 8-point game. Utah, a 3-point game with a chance to send it to overtime. K-State's an 8-point game. This team wasn't going to win outright on talent, and we knew that. But the culture won at the end of the day. The hard work won. Those early mornings you do in June, in July, to get ready for the season, that's what won Iowa State these games. And Matt Campbell really brought the program together early on, like he's done every single year. And they were more talented than they've been in previous years, and it allowed them to keep fighting. But at the end of the day, it wasn't the talent that won out. It was the culture. It was the hard work. It was those extra reps that they put in. Because I think the teams we played were just as talented, if not more talented than us at time to time. But we won the battle mentally.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard the saying before that, you know, and I think it's a testament to how razor-thin of a margin college football is, especially in the Big 12. Like, I think the difference really between, you know, Arizona State, Iowa State, and then, I mean, you look down the line. You know, we talk about a team like Texas Tech, talk about a team like Kansas, talk about a team like Baylor. The margin isn't that crazy. So that being said, you know, again, like I said, I've heard the saying where the other team also has 85 scholarship players, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a big deal. So it comes down to that culture. It comes down to how you respond to adversity. Iowa State had some adversity this year, mainly being injuries, right? I mean, specifically in your linebacking core, the tight ends, you know, Ben Bramer hurt for the back half of the season. You had injuries in the secondary. Malik Verdone didn't play against K-State. I thought the writing was on the wall at that point, because against a running quarterback like Avery Johnson, you need those hard-hitting safeties. Here's a tweet. Here's a stat, okay? We're big stats guys. Huge. Massive stats guys. This is not a bootstrap sample here by any means. But anyway, Iowa State has had 23 different offensive starters, 19 different defensive starters, and a total of 93 players have played during this 10-win season. So to me, that's honestly one of the big stories of this year.
Yeah.
Is, albeit these injuries, you found a way to bring guys in. You know, talk about a guy like Rylan Barnes at linebacker, what he did in the middle of the season. You talk about the development of a guy like Gabe Burkle at tight end. Just, you know, some of these guys up and down the line. I'm trying to think of who else here. I mean,
I thought Jalen Jackson took a really big step up.
Jontez Williams at D-back.
Second team, all Big 12.
Yes, yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
After he really struggled last year when he had to fill in for some of those guys. To me, that's a testament to the culture, right? Like, and also the ability of this staff to develop guys to where you can be confident in this fifth-string linebacker from, you know, middle of nowhere Iowa to come in and make plays.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I saw that stat, and to me that's very representative of the story behind this season.
And it's a testament to Campbell and the entire coaching staff.
Yeah.
Like, he gets not only his top-end guys ready, those top 22 ready to go, but you play 95 guys, that's 8 guys that aren't on scholarship are now getting reps. And when they were out there, it didn't look like they were absolutely getting torched every single play. They were fighting. Granted, yeah, they're a step slower here and there, or they miss a tackle here and there, but they're still competing. They're still fighting just as well as many scholarship players across the Big 12.
Yeah, mentioned Malik Verdone hurt on Saturday. I mean, John Haycock, that was a classic Haycock masterclass, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, he's taken some heat this year. This has probably not been one of his better seasons as the defensive coordinator at Iowa State, and in large part due to the fact that he's had to, you know, scrape by with some guys that aren't used to playing football on this kind of stage. But that was a classic John Haycock night. Proves why he's one of the best D coordinators in college football. And I was really worried. You know, Avery Johnson, running quarterback, that's where Iowa State has struggled this year against the guys like Jalen Daniels, the UCF guy, Ja'Cory Brown. Even though Iowa State won that game, he really did a lot of damage on the ground. The ability of Iowa State to rattle Avery Johnson all night long and keep him from doing damage on the ground on Saturday was absolutely massive. And to me, that's what won Iowa State the game. It wasn't an elite offensive performance by any means, partially because it was so cold. But, yeah, that was a big night. Tayshaun James in the secondary was huge. He had a big-time game. Jack Sadowski at linebacker, he also took some heat this year for initially it didn't seem like he had developed a lot from last season.
Yeah.
He got a lot better in the last 3 or 4 games of the year. Great to see that too. But really, that was my big takeaway from Saturday.
Yeah, and who else to lead us on the ground against K-State other than Abu Sama? 15 carries, 81 yards. Unfortunately, no 70-yard touchdowns for him. But he's another guy who really didn't take the step up we were thinking, but still made an impact here and there. And, of course, against K-State, man, he's just got their number. Another guy that, we're going to look to.
Oh, by the way, Iowa State has won 4 of 6 against K-State. 5 of 7 actually now.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to 2018, 5 of 7, which K-State owned that series for a long time there, going back to the early 2000s. Ever since Campbell got into town, he's really had the number of Chris Kleiman. But yeah, anyway, as you were saying.
Yeah, no, but, Sama takes a big step up because at the end of the day, what we've learned, we have the definition of running back by committee. We got 3 guys at 1A, 1B, 1C, depending on the day. This was Sama's game. For probably only the second or third time we've seen it all year. We really thought coming into the season he was going to, 100-yard rusher almost every game, getting 15, 16 carries, but not how it goes. But it's a testament to him. Like, he stuck with the program. He kept fighting. Last year at this time we had 2 guys transfer out because other guys were getting carries.
Yeah.
Sama sticks with it. He keeps fighting. He gets his day. And maybe he gets another big day in the Big 12 championship, maybe not. We'll just have to keep looking out for that.
One other guy I wanted to shout out quick, Darian Porter. We talked about the ability of the staff to develop guys. He, to me, is the poster child for that. 6th-year senior. He hasn't been a starter until this year, and really he's still sitting behind Miles Purchase and Jontez Williams for snaps. And he still plays a lot. But that's a guy where, man, in this era of college sports, the narrative, the culture is the moment you don't get playing time, you go. You book it out of town and find another school where you fit better into their scheme, you fit better into their system, get more playing time. He stuck around because he loves it here, and he loves his teammates, he loves his coaches. And, man, 5 career blocks, whether that be punts or field goals. He had a big field goal block on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
I love watching that guy. Matt Campbell's reaction to when he blocked that was awesome.
That was amazing.
The Scripps Cyclones jacket he was wearing was sweet too. Can that be found anywhere? Hopefully soon. Should be. But yeah, Darian Porter, wanted to give him a shout out. That guy I'm gonna miss him. He really embodies, I think, what it means to be an Iowa State football player, and sets the tone for guys like that going forward.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll have a discussion later on about, guys staying, new guys coming in.
Yep.
That'll probably come in, I don't know, next week's pod, maybe the week after, when we have a lay of the land after this conference championship and we know what our future looks like. But I think for right now, that's a discussion for later. We got a very important game to focus on.
Without a doubt. Good segue. Iowa State, Arizona State in the 2024 Big 12 Championship at Jerry's World. As we mentioned, Arizona State picked to finish last in the conference preseason. What a season from them.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I wish this wasn't Arizona State. I wish this was like a Colorado or, a BYU, somebody. I like this Arizona State team.
Yeah.
And they're a team that I don't want to cheer against. Obviously, I will be on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
But what a story from them. Let's start here, Casey, with Cam Scatterbu, right? He is the name to circle on Saturday. Iowa State's rushing defense against Cam Scatterbu. What do we think?
You kind of got to go all out. So the very nice thing is Jordan Tyson is out, which means, he's one of the best receivers in the Big 12. You got to go all in on your run defense because they got to go all in on their running game. He's got twice as many catches as the rest of the staff. So, Dillingham's going to have to rely on him. Scatterbu's going to get a bunch of touches. He's averaging almost 6 per carry, 1,400 yards, 17 touchdowns. Haycock does have the upper hand, though. Iowa State's built for run defense. We know what they're going to do. Sam Leavitt, he's a very talented quarterback, but he's still young. You can force him into mistakes. But I think the entire game plan has to be get them into those third and mediums where they have to make a pass, right? Because on 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, you've got probably the second best running back in the entire nation going out there. you can't really beat them every single time in that situation. Where you can beat them is when you're going up against a redshirt freshman quarterback who has been talented, but he hasn't played in a situation like this, right? He hasn't been in the big moments. He can still make mistakes. He can still crack under the pressure.
Yes, and like we mentioned, Iowa State, where they've struggled in their run defense this year is when you have that dual threat quarterback that can also do damage on the ground, right? And, think about Kansas with Jalen Daniels. Think about UCF with Ja'Cory Brown, right? That guy couldn't even throw the football, but he was a really good runner. Yep. I might be missing somebody else. I mean, Iowa State held Avery Johnson, and I think that's a good sign going forward. But that's the great thing here for Iowa State is Sam Leavitt isn't a running quarterback, right? Yeah. He may make a couple plays on the ground. He's not going to be a threat, though. So you can sell out on Cam Scatterbook, AC, like you mentioned, especially with the fact that Jordan Tyson is hurt in this game. 8th nationally in rushing yards this year is Scatterbook for Arizona State. So, I mean, certainly an insane talent this guy is. But, I think the recipe for success is pretty clear here.
Yeah.
Right? It's you stop the run. I think you win the game. If you hold Scatterbook to, I don't know, I mean, he'll probably get his own, right?
Yeah.
But if you can keep him under, 125 rushing yards, I think that's a pretty good sign.
Yeah.
And I suppose that depends as well. If he breaks a couple loose for big-time touchdowns, then that's probably a little bit of a concern because then that means, they're scoring big time on that. But if it's like he gets that because they force-feed him 30 different times during the game, I think if you hold him to under 125, that's pretty good.
I think that's your plan is you got to stop the big runs. Like, he's going to get 4 to 5 yards a carry. You can let that happen, and our defensive line will hang in there the entire game, and we'll throw punches with you there. You can't give up a 40-yard rush.
Correct.
And then, they run a play action, they bomb it over our heads, right? And then next drive down, you give up a 60-yard rushing touchdown. You can't give up those big plays. You got to minimize those. Mm-hmm. If you have more big plays than Arizona State this game, I think you win. Because Arizona State, they're an electric team. They're a young team, right? You don't want to let them get that fire going inside them. It's not like a veteran team where they're going to keep their head down. They're going to be confident, be like, all right, yeah, we're only down by so many, but we'll just stick to our game. They're a young team. They're a fiery team. How they beat you is they go get a big rushing play or they go bomb it over the top of you, and then they're fired up and their defense goes and gets a stop, and then you've just got a lit match going, and that's really hard to put out.
Yeah, I think you're right on that, Casey. This could very well be a slow the game down type of game, right? Mm-hmm. Just, keep Arizona State's offense off the field, keep the ball out of Cam Scatterbook's hands as much as possible. And like you said, just don't give up the big play. If that means you're going to give up a couple of, 8, 9, 10-yard rushes from time to time every few drives, so be it, right? If that means you're not going to give up that 40-yard run for Scatterbook, which also sets up the play action, like you said, I think that's the recipe. Mm-hmm. Defensively, Arizona State has a better rush defense than pass defense, so I think that bodes well for Iowa State, right? Yeah. This could be another big Higgins and Knoll game. By the way, first 2 receivers in Iowa State history to both have over 1,000 receiving yards in a single season. It's a big deal. These guys are dudes. Get them the rock on Saturday. I think offensively, I don't have too much concerns for Iowa State this game. It's defense. It's how can you find a way to stop that rushing attack. If you can, I don't see any issues here. Rocco Beck still, he's been fairly inconsistent over the course of this year, but he's got so many good playmakers around him. And Taylor Mauser, the play calling has really played in his favor this year, right? Like they've given Rocco Beck the ability to have success even when he's not playing super well.
Yeah, definitely. All I put down was you got a game plan to your playmakers on offense, right? You got to get Knoll on some sort of post look or where he can get some run after the catch yardage with his speed or beat a secondary. Higgins, you got to get him like some jump ball situations where, hey, I'm going to go one-on-one with your guy. My guy's better, right? And we're just going to throw it up to him. Keep game planning to your playmakers. Let Rocco do what he's been doing most of the season, right? Get it to his favorite targets in situations that work for them. And then go to your running back, whoever it is, that, has the hot hand that week, that day. Because you've got the rotating guys like we've talked about. Just give it to the hot hand, right? Go to your playmakers.
Without a doubt. Well, Casey, anything else to say here? Arizona State favored by 2 in this game. It's, I would imagine by the time it kicks off on Saturday, it's close to a pick-em, maybe like 1.5 Arizona State. This should be a fun game. It should be a good game. Chance for history here. In my opinion, this is already the best football season in Iowa State history. I don't think many people could argue against that. 2020, you still had that Fiesta Bowl win, and this season's not over yet, so maybe you still give the nod to that, but that was also a COVID year. Things were fluky.
Yeah.
It was just different. This, without a doubt, the best regular season in school history, but you've got more to prove. And this team, they know that, and they believe that, and they celebrated the 10 wins on Saturday for a little bit, right, as they deserve to. But it's right back to business come Sunday. And this entire week has been, standing on business. This team is ready for this game. It's a big moment for the history of this program.
Yeah, entirely. And it's a spot at a interesting college football playoff that, man, there's a lot of question marks around. But, hey, all we know is if we win, we're guaranteed a spot. And that's what we have to focus on.
Yes, yep. Thank you to Tulane for losing. Big props to Memphis.
Good job, Memphis.
And that was
only time we'll ever
weekend.
shout out Memphis.
Yeah, shout out Memphis. Thank you. Tyrese Hunter having a great season for the Tigers right now. You do hate to see it. What an interesting career that guy's had. Yeah, CFP right now, it's kind of all over the place. I hate, Twitter this time of year is just an absolute cesspool because everybody has an opinion on this matter, and I feel like every time I log into that app, there's it's the same opinion, framed in a different way, either on one side or another, and I feel like I'm just losing brain cells every time I log onto that app and I see these CFP, college football playoff takes. My biggest thing right now, Casey, is the conflicting narratives, right, when it comes to the CFP, right? Because, with the SEC, this year you've had a lot of cannibalizing within that league.
Yeah.
You've had a lot of 8-4, 9-3 teams. Nobody has really, taken the reins. You don't have Alabama sitting there at the top. Texas, they're probably the best team in the league, but they haven't beaten anybody good yet. The whole narrative right now from the CFP is, this conference is so good top to bottom that everybody ends up beating each other. Whereas we look at the Big 12, and it's kind of the same deal. You got more 10-2 teams, okay? There's a clear top 4. But it's been somewhat of that as well. I mean, you had a team like Kansas rattle off 3 straight ranked wins. You had, some other upsets too. But the narrative then becomes, the Big 12's best aren't very good. This conference isn't good in general. So it's it's one or the other, right? You can't have both.
Yeah.
Pick one side here. That's my biggest thing.
Yeah, I mean, we play the games on the field for a reason.
Yes.
You can't tell me that an Alabama team who loses to Vandy, who loses to Georgia Southern or Georgia State, whoever it was, doesn't deserve to drop as many spots as a team who, loses to Oklahoma State, who, by the way, Oklahoma State 0 wins in Big 12 play, undefeated against the SEC. For whatever that's worth. I get it that on paper every single SEC team is more talented than a Big 12 team. We get it. We have no 5 stars outside of the guys over at Colorado in our conference. We have no incoming 5 stars outside of Julian Newman, not Julian Newman, the Colorado QB who flipped, Julian Lewis.
Oh, yeah.
Julian Newman's was a basketball player, kind of. But at the same time, you look at it and it's why do we look at these things differently? Yeah, they're more talented, but everyone plays on the field. Right? Results matter. If we're just going to go off of the paper of, this was a better team at the beginning of the season, or this team's part of this conference, right? If I look at the schedules and you don't put any names on it and you just give me the rankings of where teams were, what they won, what the margin of victory is by, what does the playoff look like, right? Alabama gets in over an undefeated Florida State last year. This year, Alabama's got another chance to go in a season. I don't think they deserve it. They don't have Saban anymore. Why are we giving them a nod? Because it's just Alabama. And another thing is the CFP has talked all year about we don't want to penalize people for making it to conference playoffs or conference championships and losing it. But now you got 2 teams in that situation. They're SMU and they're Boise State. What do you do if they lose? Are you going to give the nod to Bama because it's Alabama? They're an SEC team when you've gone this entire year talking about we don't want teams to make the conference championship and lose and get penalized for it because, they have that game that they deserve to play. Because then you got teams that they might try and miss it because it'll put them in a better situation because hey, at least I'm sitting home on Saturday watching someone else play. And if they lose, I'm in because we've seen that someone else is going to get penalized for that loss, and I get to jump their spot. It's opening yourselves up to a lot of different questions, and I don't know if this format lasts. I don't know if the automatic qualifiers last. I sure hope automatic qualifying to the first round doesn't last.
Yeah, I mean, the real winners here are like Tennessee and Ohio State, right?
Yeah.
Because those two teams, as of now, are both still in, and they don't have to play this weekend.
And Indiana.
Correct, yes. So those are the winners here. Because they're in these conferences where we have all this bias, and, you talk about a team like Penn State here. I would imagine they're probably a little upset that Ohio State lost to Michigan because now they have to play, and if they lose to Oregon, which I think there's a good chance they do, I think Oregon's significantly better, they're probably going to get bumped down further than what they were beforehand. Yeah. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I could see that happening. Same thing in the SEC, right? Tennessee's sitting right there comfortably at 9. If Georgia plays Texas and gets blown out, maybe they fall below Tennessee. But that's the least of my concerns, to be honest. I don't care about those Big Ten and SEC teams. You're right, Casey. The issue here is yes, no one's going to argue that the SEC, the Big Ten, have better players than the Big 12, the ACC, the G5 schools. But when it gets to the point where it's we're going to put the best teams in regardless, it's all of a sudden you're putting the college football playoffs into the hands of the 24/7 Sports and the rival scouts that give these guys the star ratings, right? Because that drives everything at this point.
Yeah, and they've been shown to bump up players' ratings and stuff like that when
Yep.
they go to bigger schools.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not hidden.
High school scouts have the hardest jobs ever, and they're wrong all the time on this stuff. So it's yes, in general, these guys in the Big Ten and the SEC are better football players, but that can't mean everything because guys grow and develop over the course of their time in college. There's that aspect. And then, the other thing too is take the NFL for instance. And I know college football's different, but let's say, let's say this year for instance, all right? The Green Bay Packers end up going 12-5 in the NFC North, but they don't win their division because the Lions are also in there too, and they're really good, okay? And then let's say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win the division in that bad NFC South, and they go 9-8. Well, the Bucs are still getting the higher seed than the Packers in the playoffs because they won their division, right? Mm-hmm. And it's you'd probably make the argument that the Packers are better, but they had a tougher schedule and they had a tougher team in their division, right? I think college football, I don't know if you have to go to divisions per se, but I think we should go more from that standpoint where it's well, if you just take care of business, then you're in, right? As opposed to, we're going to leave everything up to human perception, which, we're all humans and we're not machines. We're not robots here. We're not going to get everything right. So that's my 2 cents on it. Yeah. It's just annoying.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? We've seen so many changes with the playoffs just over our lifespan and over the past 5 years. You go from a situation where we just pick the number 1 team and they've won it. No game needs to be played.
Yeah, right.
Or we'll have a co-champion to now we got a 2-team playoff to now we got a 4-team playoff. You got the champions usually going at it to, well, now we've got a champion gets knocked out, so we have to expand the playoff because a lot of people are upset on what happened in the situation. And you've kind of come to a product right now that no one's happy with. And
correct.
You've got a lot of people from every corner up in arms because everyone thinks that their team deserves to be in at the end of the day. No matter what your team did, to some degree, you're going to think, oh, yeah, my team deserves to be in.
Yeah, no doubt.
I had a conversation with someone yesterday saying, well, if you're going to go off the best teams, why isn't Kansas getting put in? Kansas, You can't deny Kansas has been the best team in the Big 12 when it comes to big games.
Right.
They don't deserve to be put in there. They shouldn't be put in there. They're not even bowl eligible.
Yeah.
They've beat the best. They've shown on paper that they're a better team. Why can't they go in? At the end of the day, something's got to change. Something's got to be figured out, or there's just got to be some sort of precedent set for future.
Yes, and the other issue here too is, and we don't need to go too deep on this because I don't feel like we're really going to get anywhere with this conversation. The rundown with Caleb and Casey has massive influence, but I don't know if like
We don't get
the
final
CFP
say.
committee is listening to us yet. We're still like less than a year and a half old on the podcast, so maybe eventually. But the other issue, as I was saying, is the AP poll, especially the preseason one. It clearly influences the college football playoff selection committee. Even not just the preseason one, but the week-to-week AP poll, right? That has an influence as well. So you've already got that issue. And then the AP poll in and of itself is such an archaic way of doing things. You know, they need to revamp that because right now you've got guys who are beat writers and or, news anchors for local news stations, local newspapers that are voting for the entirety of college football. And that's not right at this point. Like back in the day, yes, that made a lot of sense. But now, these guys have such hard jobs in their respective, media landscapes. They don't have the time to watch all of college football. If we really want to continue to go with the voting system, have guys like Joel Klatt, Kirk Herbstreit, guys that are consuming college football all day, every day, right? Those are the guys who should be voting on this, not the, newspaper, Kentucky beat writer for like the Lexington Journal, whatever. I'm just throwing out some random example. Yeah. But do you agree with me there? Like, that's just, I don't think we should be, because the AP poll clearly influences the CFP selection committee, right?
Oh, entirely.
So we need to make sure that the guys voting for it actually know what's going on.
Yeah, I just want to read off something that I saw earlier in the week that I think I sent it to you as well as kind of a talking point for this. Tennessee falls 4 spots after beating a solid Florida team at home in overtime. Ohio State fell 4 spots after losing to a 6-win Michigan team at home as 3-touchdown favorites. Where is like our continuity at the end of the day? Because Ohio State's, they're a bigger brand than Tennessee. Michigan's a bigger brand as well. We're going to favor them, obviously. They're the big names. But at the end of the day, where is the consistency? We haven't seen consistency probably ever. And I think as fans, we've just come to accept it and say, hey, that's kind of how it goes. And the first time people really spoke out was last year when Florida State goes undefeated and they get left out for having a QB get injured, which sets a whole different thing that we're not even going to get talking about. But there needs to be some sort of clarity, or there needs to be some sort of like set rules or guidelines, or take away the names when the AP voters are going. Take away the names, say, number blank played number blank, or this is what happened. Here's all the stats from the game. Here's the numbers. Here's what was projected at the beginning of the game. Mm-hmm. So we don't have, that team lost. Oh, that team's Ohio State, though. We don't want them to drop too far. Right. They make us money. They get us clicks at the end of the day. Yes. And it's a business, so that's what you want. So I get it in that part. But at some point, you've got to go away from that and look at it as the football that is being played on the field and take that away from the marketing and the business side of it.
Yep, that's a good point too, because, the ESPN and the college football playoff are business partners, right?
Yeah.
Well, who's another business partner of ESPN? The SEC. Mm-hmm. So you've got this like triangle of business going on here. And it's all a scheme to try and make as much money as possible. Like college football is an entertainment product. That's why, we talk about it because it's entertaining, and you make money off of that, right? Like it is when you're talking business, it is a product that is to be monetized. But you can't like just destroy the sport by trying to generate as much of that revenue as possible, because you know that Ohio State is going to garner more eyeballs than, say, Arizona State or Iowa State, right? You can't do that, because this is a sport where, it's still like at the end of the day, it is. I don't even know what I'm trying to say here, man. But it's a sport, right?
Yeah.
And you play the games, and we've never, until the last really 10 years or so, we've never worried that much about, whose conference is making more money, what schools are making more money. Like, that's just a separate deal. And you and I sit here to talk about the games because we love them, not because, here's how much eyeballs this game is drawing or this game. It's like, I don't know. I'm going down the rabbit hole here.
Yeah.
But as you can see, Casey and I are both very frustrated with the current state of how this is all going.
I mean, my thought on it was, if Usain Bolt finishes 4th in a race and the top 3 move on, right? Mm-hmm. You don't give Usain Bolt into that race just because it's Usain Bolt, right? He's the fastest man in the world. He set all these world records. He finished 4th.
Yep.
Not first, second, or third. First, second, or third get in, right? They have proven statistically that they deserve to be in. Why does he get in over one of them? Just because it's Usain Bolt, correct? You wouldn't do that in track. That's why track is all numbers based, right?
Yep. Man, wouldn't that be nice?
We got to put something. There's got to be some sort of way that you can do that with college football.
Yes. And listen, you and I are both massive college football fans here, and we both agree that we enjoy college football a lot more than the NFL, right? But I think the NFL model is just significantly better than college football here at this point in time because you don't rely on human perception. It's all whether or not you win or lose football games. It's as simple as that. It's not, hey, this team's strength of schedule versus this team's strength of schedule. This team's brand versus this team's brand, right? It's like you play your games. You have a certain record. If your record's good, you're in. If your record's bad, you're not in. You know, you've got different instances where you might be in a really good division still with a good record, but you don't make it in because of that. It's like it would make life a lot easier. Yeah. And, I mean, it would give every team a chance, whereas now you're making this an SEC and a Big Ten playoff. But shall we move on to make some picks?
Let's do it.
All right.
I mean, we talk bad about conference titles for a little bit, and then we're going to pick them at the end of the day. So, hey, that's what we are. We still love the games. We're still going to watch
You know what bums me out? And you know what? I'll let you start here, and then I'll make this point. Go ahead.
All right. First off, we're going to head over to the Mountain West, where the current 4-seed projection Boise State is taking on number 20 overall UNLV. Boise State wins this. They're in. It's best believe they're the 4-seed over the Big 12, getting that last bye game. UNLV, if they win, I believe they would jump up to that 11 seed or 12 seed, and the Big 12 winner would jump up to the 4, allegedly.
So I was going to say this is what bums me out is I feel like I'm having to cheer against Boise State, and I am. Like, I hope UNLV wins this weekend, and I hate that because this Boise State team is so fun. Ashton Jeanty is so much fun. I mean, he's just an electric college football player. He's something we have rarely seen in this sport. But I'm cheering against them because I know as of right now the playoff committee has them ahead of the Big 12 winner. And again, it doesn't make any sense to me because on one hand, it's, SEC strength of schedule prevails, but on the other hand, Boise State, weaker strength of schedule than the Big 12, but they have a better record, so they're in. So it's like, again, I don't know where we draw the line here. Anyway, I'll have Boise State winning this game. This team is really, really good. Ashton Jeanty, one of the best players in the sport. My pick to win the Heisman. Broncos win it.
I'm going to go against you on this one.
Okay.
I also love Ashton Jeanty. I think he should win the Heisman as well. But I really like this UNLV team, this coaching staff. That go-go offense is just so fun to watch. I mean, they get out. It's basically like running in transition constantly in basketball, right? They're going to hurry up, and they're going to bomb it downfield. Then they're going to run an option play for 20 yards, and they're just not going to stop. It's go, go, go all game. Absolutely fun to watch. Teams got to sell out against Ashton Jeanty and the run, and you've started to see it more as the season goes on. I mean, he's still putting up 150 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns like it's nothing. So he's an absolutely insane player, but I really like this UNLV team. I don't think Ashton Jeanty loses the game. I think he still does what he always does. I think the Boise State defense can't keep up with UNLV and this go-go offense. They find a way to win.
Okay. I would love for that to be the case, Casey.
Yeah.
Real quick, so we both went 5-3 the last time we picked, right?
Correct.
A couple weeks ago. We only split one, but then I guess we split 2, but we both took one of them. So I had Kansas beating Colorado. Okay, look at that.
Yeah.
And then you had Notre Dame beating Army. Records here overall, still really close here, Casey. 39-39 for yours truly, and then 38-40 for Casey. Wow,
it's going to be an intense basketball season.
Yeah, it really is. Yep.
If we're tied at the end, do we just start picking golf, or there's got to be more sports coming up?
If we're tied at the end, we'll proclaim the winner as that one guy who won our NCAA tournament league.
True.
Trevor Perkins. Trevor, if you're listening, congratulations again. Hope you got the shirt. Never got a follow up on that from him. I sent it out to him, and I don't know if he ever received it or not.
Sent it out to an address.
A certain address in the state of Virginia, I think is where he's from.
Yeah.
Congrats, Trevor.
Yeah.
Hope to see you back in March this year as well.
Oh, yeah. Second playoff game, your Army Knights heading up against the Tulane Green Wave. This should be a fun one.
Yes, without a doubt. The American Championship here, man. This has been a fun conference this year. That's been a great conference. American Conference with Army and Navy now in it. I'll take Army here. You know, I see you already highlighted that on the doc that we share here. You knew what I was going with. Bryson Daly, an absolute dude. He won the American Conference Offensive Player of the Year. You know, no surprise there. He's been unbelievable. I'll go with the Black Knights to win this one. What a travesty if this is real that College Game Day is not going to Army-Navy next weekend.
That's what I heard from the Navy Athletic Twitter. Gosh. That they won't be. I mean, it's the best Army-Navy game in our lifetime, possibly ever.
Yes. I mean, probably, I'm sure in World War II they had some good ones, but
yeah,
it's not really
not against
modern
each other.
College football. Yeah, true. Yeah, no, that's really, really dumb. I mean, game day, I don't know why. They've always been there. And like you said, this is the best one of our lifetime, and they're not going to be there.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Tulane. Love John Summerall as a coach. He has been absolutely fantastic all season. I think, man, he's going to go someplace special. He could be a Power 5 coach as quick as this offseason. He's a very talented coach. I'm going to go with Tulane. I like this team. Nothing against Army. They're an incredibly fun team to watch. I won't be picking them next week either, but Tulane, I got to go with the Green Wave, baby.
Ride the wave.
We're going to go, we're going to go to the SEC next, and what'll probably be, outside of the Big 12 game, the best game to watch. This will be Texas, Georgia, two teams that have been fighting at it all year. They've been going at it. They deserve this spot. And here's the thing, Texas won, one Big 12 title in their time here, and now they've got a chance to win one SEC title.
It's funny how it works that way. I thought this SEC was just so good and the Big 12 stunk, and here comes the team that was just a bottom feeder in the Big 12 for so long. Now they're going to win an SEC title in year one. What's that about?
Tier 2 team with Tier 1 funding goes in and beats your Tier 1 teams.
Interesting.
I digress. Yeah, Georgia, Texas.
I'll go Texas here. I think that this Texas team is still really, really good, albeit they haven't beaten really anybody good yet. I mean, Texas A&M, that was a fine win, but that A&M team, I don't know what to make of them at this point. They've kind of been spotty this year. Georgia has been a little too inconsistent for me. I mean, barely snuck by Georgia Tech in what was an unbelievable game on Friday night.
Yeah.
That was crazy. We had that right after the Iowa-Nebraska classic defensive-oriented game wrapped up. So it was like two completely different games. Hey, by the way, congratulations, Nebraska. Made it to a bowl game, but still got beat by Iowa in like the
another field
Nebraska-Iowa fashion. Action Jackson Stratton.
Yeah.
I wanted Nebraska to win that though. I don't like the Hawks, but anyway, Texas, I'll take them. Georgia been too inconsistent for me.
Caleb's taking the 3 favorites right now. I'm going to go with Georgia.
Uh-oh.
We're going to keep splitting. You know, either one of us is going to have a huge lead next week, or at the end of the day, it's all going to cancel out. But this Georgia team's incredibly talented. You know, you look everywhere on this team, there's just studs, no matter where you look. And I get it's the SEC, but Georgia has it more than any other team. And they find ways to win these games, whether it's the SEC championship, whether it's a playoff game, whether it's a national championship. Kirby wins these games. And I'm just going to ride off the back of that. Kirby wins when it matters most. He's made it into the conference championship. He's going to go out there and find a way to win again. And then we head over to the Big Ten, where you mentioned earlier Penn State, Oregon. This one should be all right. You know, I don't think it's as interesting as the other ones unless, you know, Penn State goes out and makes it interesting. Oregon, the number 1 team in college football right now, but we've seen crazier things happen, Caleb.
Yeah, we have. I'm going to take Oregon here again, picking the favorite. This Penn State team, you know, they've had a good season, 11-1, but they've only played, you know, one legit team, and that was Ohio State, and they lost. And you look up and down their schedule, and it's pretty weak, to be honest. and then they had that game against Minnesota a couple weeks ago where they barely scratched by, and I don't have a ton of confidence. James Franklin, I won't pick him to win these games until he does. You know what I mean? I need to see it first, and we haven't. We've never seen him win these big games.
He's never won a big game, and he's not going to do it this year. This is the biggest game of his life, and he's going up against Dan Lanning, who's arguably one of the best coaches in college football right now. He gets his teams prepped and ready to go no matter who they're playing. They've gone out and beat everybody. They went into Michigan and they beat them. They beat Ohio State at home in the last seconds, right?
Yeah.
They've hung in there and they've beaten everybody, and they're going to go do it again. I mean, there's no proof from James Franklin to go off of. The proof is James Franklin will lose this game.
Correct.
If you look back on every single matchup previously. Obviously, he wants to rewrite the narrative and change things. But when are you going to do it right?
It's the primetime Kirk Cousins allegations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can he right the wrongs here? I don't know. I think it'd be fun to see Penn State win this game.
Yeah.
You know, I like James Franklin as a coach. I think he's a good coach. But he hasn't given us anything to believe in him in terms of this game against Oregon.
Yeah. And then over to the ACC to finish it off, we'll go Clemson versus SMU. Caleb, who do you got in this one?
Yeah, interesting here. I mean, Clemson just sneaks in after Miami lost to Syracuse. I'm going to take Clemson here, actually. This is the one underdog I'm going to pick. I think that Dabo Swinney, this is like a massive, massive prove-it game for him, because if he loses this one, all of a sudden it's like, I think the Dabo fatigue is really going to set in for Clemson fans if it hasn't already. Now, this is his chance to steer that ship a completely different direction. If he can find his way to backdoor himself into the playoffs with an ACC championship, you know, I think all of a sudden a lot of that kind of goes away, at least momentarily. And I think he's been in the spot so many times before, he's not new to it. And I'm going to take him and the Clemson Tigers to win this one. Cade Klubnik, big game against SMU. This SMU team has been awesome to watch this year. They've been really, really good. I'm going to go with the Tigers, though.
Yeah. I mean, you look at it, you've got two extremes here when I look at Clemson, because Clemson, they go out and they say, we're not using the transfer portal, right? Them and the three military schools, the only team to bring in 0 transfers. And you find a way into the conference championship. Army, the best team in the American Conference right now. Maybe it's got something to say. Colorado, though, on the other hand, they bring in a ton of transfers, and, you know, they just wind out, 1 or 2 spots right outside the conference championship. So you've kind of got the two extremes there in Clemson and Colorado. Both of them played at high levels. And then you've got SMU, who's a very talented team. They can't take this game away from them for paying players anymore because now it's legal. So I'm going to pick SMU, though. This team's very talented. This offense has been fantastic to watch the entire season. We were watching them as early as week 2, week 3 out at Iowa State tailgates. I mean,
yes.
And it's been a fun team to watch, and I've got a lot of faith in this SMU team. I don't know if I have a lot of faith in SMU or I'm just over Dabo. I think I've kind of made this known. Not the biggest Dabo fan.
The Dabo fatigue for Casey is set in.
Oh, it's been set in for about 2 years now. I'm tired of it. I want to see someone else take over Clemson. Not anything against him. He's fantastic. He's an all-time great college football coach, but I want to see somebody new in there. I want to see a new face, and I'm going to go with SMU at the end of the day.
We'll see. Maybe Dabo's going to do something on Sunday morning after this game. If Clemson wins, he's going to be like, where's Casey Schieschler at? And find your phone number. Because he likes doing that with his fans, right?
Yeah.
You know, whenever there's some doubter and then Clemson ends up winning, you know, he wants to pull out the bookmarks on that. Kind of like Ryan Day.
Yeah.
Lou Holtz. Where's Lou Holtz at right? But now.
Said Ryan Day can't beat Michigan.
Lou Holtz wants to find out where Ryan Day is.
Ryan Day wants to find out if he still has a job after losing 4 straight to Michigan. So,
what a tough spot for Ohio State right now. Because you if they're in the playoff, you can't fire them right now, right?
No.
But, yeah, I mean, if you lose first round.
I mean, your interim would be Chip Kelly, who can't win in playoff games.
Absolutely not. All right. What do we think? 3 for 3 to round it out.
Yeah.
Next week, we're going to have a show entirely on basketball because we couldn't hit on it today, but we've got so much to say on that front between, you know, Feast Week this past week, which was awesome. The Big 12 is all over the place right now, as usual.
I mean, everything's all over the place.
Yes.
Nova loses to some nobody school and turns around and gets a ranked win.
Yeah, the AP top 5 last night, everybody's going down. We've got an Iowa State game against Marquette to discuss. Yeah, we're going to have a good one next week as well. Don't have the time to talk about basketball today, all football. But 3 for 3 to cap it off. How about it?
Yeah. You hate to see it. I'm going to actually start with the coach we're going against this week for my 3 for 3. Kenny Dillingham earns a $200K bonus for reaching 9 wins, and he kind of went out and disperses all of it to 20 off-the-field staff members and 5 to 10K bonuses for them going into Christmas. I mean, he's a great guy, right? You hear a lot about him, like, barking at officials and stuff like that, doing stuff on the field and kind of being crazy, but doing something like that for your staff and especially off the field members who they don't earn a whole lot of money. So this, like, especially heading into the Christmas season, it's a fantastic thing to see. You tip your cap. You tip your cap to Dillingham, and at the end of the day, he's been a great coach, and to see him do something like this is even better as a person.
I like that, no doubt about it. He's a good dude, and he and Matt Campbell both had high praise for each other this week. I don't know if you saw the quote from Dillingham about how he came and actually studied practice at Iowa State for a few days back when he was an assistant at Auburn under Gus Malzahn. So that was pretty cool. He and Tyson Veit, the now DC at Cincinnati, I guess, are good buddies. So that was pretty cool. My number 3, already alluded to it a little bit ago, the 8 overtime game between Georgia and Georgia Tech. I mean, it would have been even better if Georgia Tech won.
Yeah.
But my goodness, I mean, that is just pure college football.
Oh, yeah.
It was awesome.
Might need to change the rules, though. Running back and forth,
Yeah.
both end zones.
Right.
In overtime for 8 times. That's kind of annoying.
It did get pretty old there by the end. I was ready for somebody to win, but it was also just sicko entertaining.
Yeah. My number 2, Grand Valley State players showing up to their almost all players showed up to their D2 playoff game. Most of the times you get coaches having their players arriving in suits. They're all looking nice. They all got like the same team-issued gear on. Nope, Grand Valley State is pulling up to a snow game with no shirts on and shiesties over their head. Absolutely fantastic. I saw a bunch of photos from it. It is snowing out. You got all the skill players, even the O-line, D-line guys showing up shirtless. They got their bags on. They got their masks on over them. It was absolutely awesome to see a team walking into a game like that. Would expect nothing less from D2 playoffs.
Intimidation. That's where the best football's played.
Yeah.
So kind of bouncing off you here. My number 2 is not D2 playoffs, but it's from the FCS playoffs. And this is probably one of the best, maybe not best, but one of the just most awesome stat lines you'll ever see in the sport of football. So SEMO versus Illinois State in the first round of the FCS playoffs. SEMO lost. Their quarterback, Paxton DeLaurent, here's a stat line. Ready? 48 completions on 85 pass attempts.
His arm's got to be sore.
Paxton DeLaurent, SEMO quarterback, 48 of 85. 567 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, all in a 35-27 loss to Illinois State.
And they lost?
That is, yes, they lost.
How'd they only put up 27? He threw the ball 85.
85 passes. I don't know. Oh, okay, here's the rushing stats for SEMO. They actually did run the ball 15 times, but for just 35 yards. So, yeah.
My number 1, pretty simple, pretty obvious, is Feast Week, Rivalry Week. That might have been the greatest week of sports, top to bottom,
awesome.
that I've just ever witnessed. Everything was fantastic.
It was so good. My number 1, I'm sure you saw the video too, the CFB One Shining Moment from this past week, all the fights during the rivalry games. If you haven't seen it, go look it up online. Just look up college football Rivalry Week One Shining Moment. It was so good. It was pure. But that'll do it for us here today. We're at about the 1 hour mark, so we will head on out. Thank you all for tuning in. As always, again, next week we'll have probably our normal show and then also a basketball-only one because there's so much to talk about this time of year. But thank you all for tuning in. Go Cyclones on Saturday. The Iowa State University varsity football team against Arizona State in Dallas. We'll see you next week.